Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I want to walk you through a dramatic episode in the war between Ukraine and Russia, an event often summarized by the headline $3 billion gone in hours. Ukraine's twin attacks cripple Russia. We'll examine what really happened, what was damaged, why the number is significant, and what it tells us about the evolving nature of warfare, economics, and strategy in this conflict. What we're dealing with is a combination of bold operational strikes by Ukraine that inflicted heavy damage on Russian military assets, and the striking figure of $3 billion used to convey the scale of destruction. To start, when people say twin attacks, they refer to two coordinated strikes targeting strategic Russian military infrastructure, often deep inside Russian territory. Ukraine's aim was to hit Russia where it hurts, to degrade its ability to project power, launch missile or air raids, or rebuild its war-making capacity. Reports suggest that key targets included airbases housing long-range bombers and strategic aviation units. Ukraine's strategy appears to have been precision drone strikes and unmanned aerial systems, UAS attacks, aimed at disrupting Russia's ability to strike back or maintain extended operations. Some accounts claim that dozens of aircraft were struck, with many destroyed or damaged beyond repair. For example, in Operation Spiderweb, which is a comparable case, Ukraine attacked multiple airbases across Russia, targeting long-range aviation assets. Now, where does the $3 billion figure come from? That is an estimation of the value of the Russian assets destroyed or damaged during those attacks. These include aircraft, their support infrastructure, maintenance facilities, fuel, munitions, radar installations, hangars, as well as the cost to repair, replace, or compensate for the damage. It is worth noting that such valuations always have a degree of uncertainty. The actual book value, component life, depreciation, and cost to rebuild or replace can vary widely. In many media treatments, $3 billion in hours is used to emphasize both the speed and scale of the strike. It's a rhetorical device as much as an accounting one, but it does reflect a real potency, destroying strategic assets rapidly and altering the balance of what can be projected. So why does this matter? First, from a military standpoint, it demonstrates Ukraine's growing reach and sophistication in using drones and asymmetric methods to strike deep into Russian territory. Rather than fighting only on the front lines, Ukraine is trying to impose costs on Russia's strategic rear, forcing Russia to divert resources to defense, reducing its operational flexibility and undermining the sense of invulnerability. Second, it's a psychological blow. Russia's citizens and military leadership expect their strategic bomber fleet, air bases, and long-range strike capability to remain intact and credible. Such attacks undermine confidence and force Russia to reconsider deployment patterns, coastal positioning, and asset dispersion. Third, it has economic and logistical consequences. If a bomber or aircraft cannot be replaced, especially given that many of Russia's long-range aircraft models are legacy systems no longer in production or built in limited numbers, then the cost is not just monetary but long-term capability. Rebuilding hangars, reconstituting supply chains for spare parts, and training or reallocating crews all take time and money. Let me draw a parallel. Ukraine's Operation Spiderweb in mid-2025 claimed to hit multiple Russian airbases across several time zones, damaging dozens of aircraft and striking strategic bomber assets, possibly crippling a significant part of Russia's long-range aviation capacity. In that operation, analysts discussed how many of the bombers or aircraft hit were irrecoverable or would require long lead times and huge expense to reconstitute. Such operations show that Ukraine is not only defending but pushing into strategic, deep target warfare. Now, let's take a moment to interrogate the numbers. When a report says $3 billion gone in hours, we must ask, how is that calculated? It's unlikely to be a perfect, audited valuation. It is probably based on a rough estimate of market replacement cost or military asset valuations. Some destroyed aircraft might have had residual value, while others might be aerospace relics with high logistical or obsolescence costs. Additionally, some damaged infrastructure may be repairable rather than destroyed outright. But regardless of the precise figure, the symbolic value is powerful. It demonstrates that Ukraine can deliver shock blows. It forces Russia to invest more in defense and redundancy, making every sortie or strategic asset more costly to protect. And it signals to external supporters and observers that Ukraine is not just passively absorbing attacks, it is striking back, and in ways that challenge the assumption of Russian dominance. Let me also emphasize the timing. Such strikes have outsized effect when they come during periods of operational pressure, for instance, when Ukraine is preparing an offensive, or when Russia is trying to maintain momentum. Inflicting a multi-billion-dollar hit just as Russia is planning further incursions or missile attacks can disrupt operational tempo, force repositioning, and reduce confidence. From a strategic viewpoint, the implication is that advanced adversaries like Russia cannot rest on fixed bases, static fleets, or assumptions of rear area safety. They must disperse, camouflage, harden, or even relocate assets to more remote or redundant locations. But those measures are expensive, slow, and often less efficient. They reduce the concentration of force and increase logistical burdens. Let me also address a possible critique. Such attacks can provoke escalation. Russia might respond with heavier strikes, harsher retaliation, or broadened targeting of critical infrastructure. The risk is that by demonstrating Ukraine's willingness and capability to strike deep, Russia might justify more indiscriminate responses or shift doctrine. But from Ukraine's perspective, the risk is weighed against the benefit of degrading Russian capability before further damage can be inflicted on Ukrainian cities or military positions. Another important dimension is signaling to allies and funders. A dramatic account of billions lost in hours grabs attention. It underscores Ukraine's need for continued cutting-edge support, drones, precision munitions, intelligence, and air defense systems. It also can help build narratives that investments in Ukraine yield strategic returns, that money spent on drones or long-range strike tech is not wasted, but can directly impose costs on the aggressor. Now, let's look at what such strikes do not guarantee. Destroying a portion of Russia's bomber force doesn't guarantee air superiority or a turning point. Russia may still have substantial reserves, other bomber assets, or alternative forms of strike, e.g. missiles, submarines. Also, repair and recovery efforts, deception, dispersal, or hidden reserves can mitigate some of the loss over time. Moreover, Russia could respond by increasing investments in air defense, electronic warfare, or hypersonic strike, making future operations harder. So when you hear $3 billion gone in hours, take it as both an attention-grabbing headline and a rough measure of impact. The real power lies in demonstrating capability, shifting the calculus of cost, and forcing an opponent to adapt under duress. In conclusion, the episode encapsulates the changing nature of modern warfare, where unmanned systems, precision strikes, logistics, economics, and strategy intertwine. A few dozen drones or missiles launched at the right time and place can ripple across an adversary's balance sheet, posture, and morale. Ukraine's twin attacks, whatever their precise monetary tally, signal that no asset is beyond reach, no base too secure, and that the war is increasingly fought not just at the front line, but deep in the adversary's domain. If you liked this breakdown, let me know in the comments, and I can prepare a follow-up on specific attacks like Operation Spiderweb, or on Russia's countermeasures and adaptations. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.